you're buying the back end, what's actually happening? Well, think about how this plays out. If the 2s 10s is really steep and the 10s 30s is really flat, then obviously one of the things you're looking at is, well, where's it going to go? Well, according to commodities, it's going to go rotating at the moment because commodities are kind of flat. The only thing that went up a little bit was oil. So we're just waiting for the oil to disappear off the top edge here, and then we can sell back into it because it's a terrible high at the moment. But the demand came back in behind the oil, and that helped it to move higher. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means that you can still work into this. It means you can still work into this because the idea is that you're going to try and trade it into the middle. It's a fly trade. It's a 10-year fly. So if you're going to do a 10-year fly and you want to know what direction it's going to trade, then obviously you can start working into your thoughts on this because think about it. What does a 2s 10s sell traditionally mean for bonds? A 2s 10s sell for bonds usually means a buy trade for bonds, doesn't it? It usually means that bonds will be going up. 10s 30s buy trade. So you're trying to steepen the back end of the curve. So what would you normally do at the back end to steepen the back end of a curve? You'd normally sell the bond. So you start looking at that and saying, wait a second, so I'm going to be buying and selling the back end of the curve. And that's where the bond gets sticky. That's why the bond at the back end goes rotational. So the bond drops down, the bond rallies back up, the bond drops down until this fly trade has worked out some sort of quality about it, then it changes. The bond curve changes, doesn't it? And if the bond curve changes, then we can obviously try and get into that bond. We can try and figure out, well, when does the change work its way out? Well, when it agrees. We start seeing it agreeing in some way, shape, or form because we start watching it against equities. We start watching it, and you can see into the cash open equities have caught a bid. So that's obviously going to help the decision to be made that the idea is that we should be short the Treasury rather than long the Treasury off the low price. Now, I still bought the Treasury at low prices, and I've made not a lot of money, but I've made some money on the long Treasury off the 28s, 29s, 30s that traded back up to 0.4s. So it's a fly trade. It's not an outright. It's simply a fly. And based on the fly trade, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make money on the fly, aren't we? We're trying to make money on the fly. So it's an awkward little fella, isn't it, when we've got these types of flies setting up, because the value is in the middle. The value is in here, so it encourages the sell here, but it also encourages the buy in here as well. It gives you the two sides of the curve agree with each other, and they basically just trade it out. And because they're trading that out, the back end bond rotates. It just spins around. It goes higher, and then it goes lower, and then it goes higher, and then it goes lower until that story evolves into one of the two parts of the curve being right and one of the two parts of the curve being wrong. It just spins around. And that's what we're kind of looking at the moment. I mean, it's a very, very interesting part to watch. It's a really interesting market because this is where a lot of people lose sight of what's going on. They don't see it happening. And it traps them. It traps them into bad trades at bad prices because they're missing the fact that there is a possible steepener at the front end and there's a possible flattener at the back end that could be equally valid. And it kind of lines up perfectly with what we were talking about oil and equities. This idea that it's a rotational market. It has that rotational feel about it. It has that quality about it. And against the big volatilities in the background, rotation these days is quite wide. It can be very wide, in fact. So we know exactly how this market behaves. We know what it can do. And obviously the equity price, the oil price, currently rotating backwards and forwards just now, trying to find some commercial value. And there's very, very little in it just now. So I'm not really that busy at the moment. The bottom edge of bonds has my attention. That's what I'm focused on just now because that's my that's where I think the value is going to start showing up. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm going to be trading. And I'm just having to wait my time to get involved in it. So that's where we're at just now, guys. Nothing much else than that at the present moment. Equities, as you know, came off the cash open. There was a buy side, sell side level that was established right off the 30 level, and that's where the price has rotated. It tried to go down to the bottom edge. The buyers came back up, pushed it back through the 30s, And obviously, if you're going to trade it as a buy-side, sell-side level on the cash open itself, you were probably watching for the price coming back off that low print that we had at the cash open itself, around about 28s, and you were probably thinking to yourself, if it goes back up and we get a failed auction, it's probably going to break north. It did break north. And that's what's happened to equity so far. So you can see Max hasn't had any trades. So we had the cash open here. The price traded down, pinned. Price traded down, pinned. So you can see what's happening. Buyers are buying those low prints. They tested it. They tested it. They took the price up, pinned. Took the price down, pinned. And obviously, as this starts to evolve, you can see it's evolving at a higher print. It's probably going to break north, and it did break north. So you can start to recognize that this little balance area was at a higher premium, and therefore that break north was spot on, basically. Spot on, basically. And that's where we've seen the price ripping away from this price area here. And that's all I've got at the moment, guys. Nothing much else. As I said, nothing much else for me at the moment. I am watching the curve. I'm watching the NASDAQ S&P. I think that's where there's going to be perhaps an opportunity to start taking advantage of some real money business in here.